Hi guys, welcome to my fourth podcast episode here in Thoughts with Gemini. And our episode for tonight is about teenage problems. And before we start, it's already 12:55 a.m. and today is August 26, 2020. And I just want to share my short experience before when I was a teenager. And when I was teenager, I have a lot of problems, both small and big that I deal with every day. And there are times I can't help but compare myself to the way other teenagers look. And I think that's pretty natural during that times. And I believe it is during this stage of one's life when a person is most insecure of his or her physical appearance. Sometimes I do not feel satisfied with my body weight or the way my face looks. And I am more conscious than ever with my appearance. I believe that teenagers nowadays make a big deal out of how they dress up. And it is very important, for me to look good every time I go out. I pick out clothes more carefully and make sure that my clothes suit me well. And I remember when I was a kid, my parents almost always give me the things I ask from them. However, as a teenager, they expect me to be wiser when it comes to money. I cannot simply ask them to get me whatever I want because I know I now realize that earning money is not easy, and I spend most of my time studying or going out with my best friend way back in high school. And as I observe nowadays, most teenager values the company of friends rather than family. And I'm actually experiencing that today that I'm teaching high school. Most of my students share a lot of stories about how happy they are when they're with their friends and peer groups rather than their family members. So there are a lot of problems that they've gone through, and that is the only escape that they have. And going back before, a lot of my friends are into sports, partying, or being in a relationship. As early as that age, they have girlfriend or boyfriend. But since I am more focused in studying and my parents are strict about having a relationship, that is the reason why I wasn't even trying to have one before. And I think it is vices such as drinking, smoking, and even doing drugs are prevalent for teenagers these days. That is why I believe it is important to be surrounded by the kind of people you want to follow as an example. And there are still teenagers who choose a right lifestyle. I sincerely believe that one can have a good time without getting into cigarettes and drugs. And I know no more carefree playing around because people expect you to be more mature in everything you do, but at the same time, you cannot be fully independent because adults, especially parents and teachers, think otherwise. Sometimes it is a conflicting situation, and I think that I am capable of deciding and doing things for myself. But adults think that there are lots more things I need to learn from them. And that is why before they're always telling me that I need to listen to them all the time. It is also in the stage where people start to question things that have been taught to them when they were kids. And as I can see, Teenagers are explorers in many aspects. They are open to a whole lot new ideas and are full of imagination. And that is why I realize being a teenager these days can be quite frustrating at times. Imagine relationship with different people can get complicated. We make a lot of mistakes as teenagers, but this will help us grow and improve as we grow older. And at the end of the day, just like any other person, teenagers just need acceptance, love, and support from people around them in order to get through. And I can say that from my experience, teenage life is a phase full of energy, hope, life, joy, beauty, and passion. Which is conversely speaking, old age is all about frailty, despair, and illness. So, if you're listening in this podcast episode and you're a teenager who experienced the same problem with me, you have to stay strong and remember that you have to enjoy your life in a right way. Alright, so I'm done sharing my short experience when I was teenager way back 2009. I think it's 2009 or 2008 when I was in high school. So, let's talk about the 6 major things that might cause a problem to teenagers. And these 6 major things that I'm going to be discussing tonight or talking about tonight and let's talk about the first and the most common problem of teenagers nowadays. It is actually the non-stop exposure to internet world. There is a constant stream of knowledge and information, though there are teenagers that they prefer not to use it. However, it would be like telling them to stick into a room during their high school, and somehow this is unrealistic. In the presence of advanced technology, teenagers are not safe, and most of the time they're facing cyberbullying. And with that, there is actually a full exposure to pornography and violence at such a tender age without knowing what they are doing. And consequently, childhood's innocence is cut short, though the adulthood is several years old. This is one of the most common problems, especially in school. There are actually teenagers, or let's say students, who cannot control using their smartphones whenever there's a class or whenever they are inside the class. Most of the time I caught my students using cell phones even if it's not required, and the fact that I'm in front of them. So as teenagers, if you are listening in this podcast episode, it is your responsibility to, of course, follow the rules and regulation when in using social media or in using phones inside the school. Second is you have to control yourself in dealing with technology today, and make use of internet as a tool for you to learn more, specifically if that learning can be applied into your study. Like, say for example, if you use internet or your phone if you use them for research, for your assignments, for learning new things, because you cannot spend your whole time studying, and you have to always remember this, that you have only one crack at life, so you have to make the most out of it. Meaning, if you're studying right now, do not just waste money and waste time. And you have to learn that time is actually consumable, but you cannot turn back the time once you waste it. So that's it. Next, bullying. Teenage life is like a minefield filled with nasty bombs that could be dangerous when a teenager step on them. And besides, there is what we call social media bullying as well. It is also inevitable in this respect. It is very difficult for you to escape bullying through any platform, whether physically or bullying through social media. So it's not only the cyberbullying, but also fellow teenagers are often cruel, especially when they are together. And bullying occurs at any age and any location. So the intensity in high during school years. So especially in high school, bullying is actually one of the most common problems. That is why there are students who spend hours in guidance office. Next, let's talk about teenage love. This is quite funny when you heard them talking about their love life, heartbreaks, breakups, and relationships, because as early as their age, they are very exposed with relationship, and they think differently towards it. And yes, I understand, because the first love of a teenager is not less than an agony, and it's actually a harsh journey for them. In teenage love, nothing else matters than deciding to launch his or her heart at someone, and for them, loving someone takes over his life, and he thinks or she thinks it would never be able to love someone, or he will or she will never be able to love someone intensely again. And I know you can relate to this if you're listening to this episode, because this is actually true. It is actually then based from my experience. But way back in high school, I don't have any boyfriend or girlfriend. Maybe crush, but it doesn't really affect me so much, because I'm not really attached onto that person. So yes, it's funny to think that teenage love today is something that they want to talk about all the time. And you will feel them most of the time when you see them posting on social media about what they feel, about heartbreaks they've gone through, and they are sharing memes about how they feel towards that person, so forth and so on. And then you will actually feel them the way they update their statuses in Facebook. And for them, the first relationship breakup is actually everything. Sometimes they want to commit suicide because of that, and that's the saddest part. If they cannot talk about it with their closest friend or their family members, so that's the reason that why they end up committing suicide, or Yes, and if you are listening to this episode, I just want you to know that whatever problems that you have today, even if it's love life, heartbreaks, or the person you love, it is not enough for you to end your life or to commit suicide. It is better for you to talk with someone older than you who can understand you and who can give you advice, because as early as that age you should be enjoying your life, and do not stress yourself with the things that you cannot fix. You have to leave it there, because if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And there's no true love in high school life, and because true love will never hurt you, and you have to realize that as early as possible, that there are many things that life could offer you in the future. So what are you going to do today is to study well, because when you are successful in life, you will have a good love life in the future. Next, let's talk about privacy and independence. As I observe, teenagers are advised to act with maturity sometimes, and most of the time rather, yet they tend to be treated like kids, and the parents are like that always. You know what? It's very natural for parents to be very protective or sometimes overprotective. It's when they treat you like you cannot do the things that you can do. And that is the reason why they're always guiding you and always saying things or providing you things that you have to learn, even if you really know it at all. So you don't blame your parents with that. So sometimes teenagers face lack of privacy issue while they desperately want to enjoy their independence. You know what? It's very natural for parents to be very protective or sometimes overprotective. It's when they treat you like you cannot do the things that you can do. And that is the reason why they're always guiding you and always saying things or providing you things that you have to learn, even if you really know it at all. So you don't blame your parents with that. So sometimes teenagers face lack of privacy issue while they desperately want to enjoy their independence. If you're a teenager or a student who is listening to this episode, I just want to inform you that it is okay if they're overprotective, and that is your parents. They just want what's good for you. You just have to listen to them and take their advice, because in the future you will see what's the result of following and obeying what's good for you. And last but not the least, let's talk about the unhealthy and high expectation from teenagers. They are encountering unhealthy expectations such as the fear of failing in exams, not getting admission into a desirable university, experiencing a bleak future, no money, and no value in society. All this expectation leads to depression and anxiety. And it would be very healthy for a better future of teenagers that their parents should not put unnecessary pressures on them, because that could have negative impacts on their children. And undoubtedly, they are facing many challenges. They're already stressed. Teenagers should not be treated harshly and strictly. And I think family members, teachers, and friends should talk to them in a friendly manner to understand their feelings and concerns. And on the other hand, teenagers should also realize that themselves what is good and what is wrong, because what they will choose in life, that could either make up their life or make a miserable, or if they make mistake, their life will be miserable. So we're done, and that's it. Time check, it's 2:12 a.m. and if you have comments and suggestions, you can send direct message in my Facebook page, Thoughts with Gemini, and you can listen this podcast episode on Spotify. And let me hear you on your comments. So I hope this episode enlighten you on what are the things that the teenagers gone through. So if you're parents, do not forget to guide your children or your teenagers all the time. And if you're a teacher who's listening to this podcast episode, I hope this will help you understand what are the things that you can do for your students, and the expectations that you set should be depend on the capacity that they have. And you have to understand as well their background, their family background, and